I don't know if maybe I'm just in an intro sequence of Tears of the Kingdom, but it's not very open worldy.
Oh, yeah, maybe you are in just
Yeah, well, I think I probably am. So, because the intro sequence to Breath of the Wild was kind of like that, but I always hate it when they take Zelda to the sky. I just
yeah.
Skyward Sword suck dick, and I don't know. I just like
I,
my open
yeah.
world games, not being forced to be navigating through islands to figure out how to get up them.
Try Elden Ring.
We talk about that every time, and then I always forget it's a thing. Is Tears of the Kingdom open world? Also, they want you to do a bunch of stupid stuff like fusing sticks with boulders and building rafts, and it's like we're
Yeah,
playing Minecraft.
right. If you want to fuse stuff, go play Minecraft.
I mean, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to give you more options, but it's like more options to me is just more complications. It
Yeah,
means I got to
just give me a
remember how
sword.
to do this.
Exactly. Just give me a sword and let me go fight Gandalf.
You mean Ganon?
Ganondorf?
Yeah, Ganon, Ganondorf. Depends on the game. You don't fight Gandalf, though.
Gandalf the Grey? You shall not pass.
Yeah, yeah. Get him good.
Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, I just started playing like an hour ago. So
nice.
so we'll see if it's open world. Google says it's open world.
From all the things that I've seen, it seems pretty open world. But yeah, it probably has a stupid intro thing that, and then you get into the real game.
Yeah, well, you got to collect the things from three shrines, make your way back to the Temple of Time, and then I assume things open up. So it's all about demonstrating that you know how to use these skills before you move on to using the next ones.
Yeah,
That way I can forget them.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then and then you take a break, and then you're like, how do I play this game again? And then you have to go through
Uh
the
huh.
intro again.
Yeah. Well, plus, I'm not. I'm not finding myself a huge fan of. Oh, give me a second. I might have actually just solved my problem. I found my Pro controller, so now I don't have to deal with Joy-Con drift.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, I just saw it over on the ledge. Apparently, I pulled it out at some point and just you know, didn't get
I love
around.
my pro controller.
Yeah, me too.
I have a Zelda one too.
Oh, man, you suck. So
You know?
that's the worst part is like to fix the Switch Joy-Con drift thing. Like it costs like $15 a controller. You can send them in the Nintendo, but you might not get the same controllers back.
Oh okay, yeah.
So if you had certain colors, like I have, then you might get the red and blue ones back.
I have the purple and orange.
Oh, is that Animal Crossing?
That was its own thing.
No,
I think the Animal Crossing was light blue and blue.
no. Yeah, maybe that was right. I don't know.
The Switch OLED, it came with
Yeah,
white, so she has the white ones, and then I wanted purple and orange.
yeah.
Yeah, my dad has red because he bought the Mario edition.
Good on him.
I know.
Yeah.
And then the old school are red and blue, but it's like a different. The Mario edition's a different shade of red.
Oh, I see. All these different additions for all of our fancy things. I'm just happy Trump and Vance have a solid child care plan in place. Have you seen those videos?
I did see the video of him talking about his child care act and how he's going to pay for it with tariffs.
Oh, the video I saw, it was incoherent. he's like, I'm sorry, what I'm working on is much bigger than childcare. And then he kept
Yeah.
rambling about that. And he's like, but childcare is very important. And then
Yeah.
didn't explain how he was going to pay for it.
Yeah, I saw that same video, and the only thing he really said was tariffs are going to pay for everything. Don't worry.
No, he didn't even imply that. He was just rambling incoherently.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and JD Vance, when asked, said maybe you have a grandparent or an aunt
Yeah.
and uncle that would like to step in and take care of them every once in a while.
Every once in a while, not like every day when you have to
Mm,
work every day, because we have 40-hour work weeks, Monday through
mm,
Friday, 8 hours a
yeah,
day.
just like my aunt, uncle, and my parents
Yeah,
and my sister.
and me.
Hmm. And me.
Yeah.
And shit. They're like the fact that I can even travel as much as I can. I don't know. That's something else.
Really, you should just bring your kids with you when you travel. That'll fix everything.
Yeah.
Just put them in the truck,
Mm-hmm.
teach them about generators.
Batteries. Batteries are the only reason I've been traveling. Anyhow, Religon. You forgot the I after the G in religion.
Yeah. So it was just going to be like a bunch of letters because I couldn't think of anything. But then I'm like,
Yeah, it's okay. But there is no I in religion, so don't feel too bad.
it's true. It's a team effort. There's no I in God
Yeah,
either.
yeah. Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
only gone. Religon.
I thought there was another word for God with an I in it, but I, I, I can't think of it right now.
I don't know. I mean, depending on the video game that you play, that god could be Ganondorf, Gaia.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gods out there.
There are Zeus, Thor.
I actually have a brief history of religion before 1900 because in 1900
Ooh.
everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Should we? Should we? And with that, welcome to Ethica America, where we're going to talk about religion in probably the stupidest context of the entire this entire podcast. I'm
Yep.
co-host Ryan,
I'm Aaron.
and God help us.
I got the idea of doing a religion episode when you sent me those. Yeah, when you sent me the TikTok video of people trying to justify Trump through religion, I think.
Oh yeah,
One of them was
was it the woman who like she couldn't remember what her amendments were, but was very very proud of them? I don't think it was that
uh
one.
it was the guy that was like he was opposed to gay marriage, but then the guy was like, well, in that same
Oh, the pork
passage,
guy. Yeah.
and in the same passage, he's also saying don't eat pork, and then he's like, do you eat pork? And he's like, oh yeah, I eat pork all the time. Pork's great. And then like you can see the guy that's asking the questions that knows that there's a contradiction there, but he's
Hmm.
waiting for the other guy to like come to that realization, like that critical thought of like
Yeah.
there is a contradiction here. I probably shouldn't base off this one notion
Hmm.
because it's something I don't like, but there's this thing I do like, which is pork.
Hmm.
But I can't. I like pork, so I'm going to keep eating it. But I don't like gay marriage, so I'm going to continue to not like gay marriage and justify it with
Yeah.
my religious belief.
Yeah. My favorite thing that that guy keeps doing is he keeps going up to people who have the Trump mugshot on their shirt and it says never surrender underneath. And he's like, is that our president? Is he saying never to surrender? Yeah. Do you agree with that? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Never surrender, never back down. And he's like, but isn't that a picture of him surrendering prior to his trial? Well, yeah, but never surrender, right? Yeah, never surrender.
Yep, that was I. I enjoyed that guy too.
Yeah.
Also, um, about gun control, and the guy was like, You can't fight fire.
Oh, you can't fight fire with water. You fight
Yeah,
fire with fire.
you have to fight fire with fire. So you can't take all the guns away because the criminals are still going to have guns. And if you don't have guns, you can't fight fire with fire. You have to fight fire. You can't fight fire with water though. And
Yeah.
the guy's like, "But you can fight fire with water. That's how we fight fires."
Yeah. I mean, to some degree, if you're talking about like a national forest being on fire, they will burn off in a controlled burn a lot of the forest surrounding the fire that way in hopes that it stops at a certain point,
Yeah.
because it can't spread. But simultaneously, that's not what this guy was talking about at all. This guy was just a moron. So,
Right. And I do feel bad because they do give religion a bad rep though.
yeah. Well, before we start diving into this too deep, go ahead first. But I'd like to offer a prayer for for all of our listeners at some point. It doesn't have to be right now.
I lost my train of thought.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, and then I just did because habits.
It
Okay.
happens.
So allow me to lead us in prayer real quick. Lord God, thank you for this Chase Bank glitch. May our families forever be uh, safe from prosecution from the federal law for the cases of check fraud. Thank Chase, thank JP Morgan Chase for bringing us this wonderful glitch. Amen.
What happened with Chase?
You haven't heard about this?
No.
So there was a TikTok trend where somebody was depositing. They're like, look, it's a glitch with the Chase ATMs. They go up and they deposit like a $30,000 check into the Chase ATMs, right? And then they go. Then Chase, for some reason, they had some sort of glitch in their ATM, but not the glitch people are talking about. But they were able to withdraw $30,000 from the ATM and just walk off. But Chase keeps records, and if you deposited a $30,000 check from your name
Mm-hmm.
into from that account back into that account, and the money wasn't there, and the check couldn't clear, that's the classic definition of check fraud.
Yeah. So
So
we're gonna be
anyhow,
hit with.
somebody somebody put that on TikTok, and apparently people have gotten about $94 million as of right now from Chase from doing this quote unquote glitch. But Chase has compiled all of their names into a list,
Yeah.
and they're literally forwarding it to federal prosecutors right now because they basically just got swindled out of $94 million by people who put in their ATM cards in front of a camera, entered their PIN, deposited a check from that same account. Like there's like it's an open and shut case.
Yeah.
So yeah. So oh yeah, and then people have the audacity to say, "Well, I had $5,000 in my account before, now it shows negative 25,000."
That's how money works.
Yeah, that's yeah. Did you have funds to clear your check? No. Well, yeah. So we tried to recoup what we could. Yeah, but it's a big thing right now. I'm surprised you don't know about it.
Yeah, I haven't heard it. It sounds stupid. It sounds like someone doesn't. They don't realize how checks and
Money.
balances work.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they definitely don't understand how balancing a checkbook works.
no.
And the fact that they thought that they could get away with it, like,
It's,
but the problem is that like it's mostly lower income people.
yeah.
So I so my point is that I pray to you, God, to to restore these people's bank accounts to a righteous zero. But yeah,
I feel
people were
bad.
using it to buy like brand new Volkswagen Golf, like brand new cars,
Yeah.
Mercedes, posting about it all over social media. And then when they realized it was check fraud, because why would you fact check TikTok, right? Once they realized it was check fraud, they were like, oh, yeah, that's a felony. So yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Thanks, TikTok, for ruining people's lives.
But yeah, so I don't think God is going to save them from this.
Probably not.
No, I think they have more to fear from the federal government.
Yeah. Yep. Oops. Should
Oops.
have. Should have. I don't know. Paid
It's a
attention.
glitch, though. Do your own research.
I didn't. I had a. Checks are funny when you deposit them through an ATM.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, I had a check once and I tried to deposit it inside, and they're like, you can't deposit it because it's missing a name. And so I just went to the ATM and deposited it, and it went right through. No questions asked, no issues. And I'm like, okay, that's way easier.
Yeah.
But if you just write yourself a check, it's not actually like it's not fact checking it. It's just a computer that's reading it and
Mm-hmm.
doing its
And
thing.
assuming, yeah, it just
Yeah,
assumes that like you're not. You got a check for $30,000. This doesn't seem suspicious.
right.
So, yeah, happens all the time. Yeah.
Now, a funny a funny one I read was it was like a while ago. So someone got one of those like fake checks in the mail that's like
Mm-hmm.
here's $250,000, but he deposited it
Mm-hmm.
and it went through. But like
Huh.
because it met all the criteria of a real check, so he just kept the
Mm-hmm.
money. But
I mean, in that instance, if you believe the check is real for whatever reason, and you
yeah,
can prove why you believe that check was real, and that Nigerian prince is probably just returning your investment to you,
yeah,
then is it really check fraud at that point? Because isn't check fraud all about intent? It's easy to prove it if like you don't have money in your account. You
yeah,
decided to throw a check in there from your account to your account.
right. I mean, it's like depositing a paycheck and then just withdrawing the funds. It's the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we're not talking about checks today. We're talking about religion
Yeah.
because politics really loves religion right now. I know we've touched on it a couple of times where the conservative party or the right they want to make Christianity mandatory in schools, and they want to put up the Ten Commandments, and they want to teach the Bible, and they don't want to teach anything else, and they want to ban.
Yeah. Blacklist all the books.
Yeah, they want to blacklist books. They want to put teachers in prison that are mentioning banned books, but the banned books aren't even like anti-religion or something like that. They're just
I saw some article, wasn't it must have been about a year ago, where somebody was trying to get something passed, or they were making a big deal about trying to pass a law where gay people weren't allowed to, maybe this was a couple years ago, but where gay people weren't allowed to be teachers in schools because they were influencing children or something like that.
right. I do remember something like that, which is stupid.
Yeah. You got to teach our kids to be gay.
I mean, it's sad that people still think that gayness is something that is taught rather than born with, but it people are dumb. Like that's what my day just comes down to is like some people are just really too ignorant and too dumb to have real opinions, and they should just stay at home and watch Fox News and then leave everyone else alone.
They would, but in World War II, we gave women jobs.
It was either World War One or World War Two was when we saw a reinsurgence of Christianity because Christianity almost died in the early 1900s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
I guess I didn't know that.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, I do remember there being a movement.
yeah, that was a
It
big
was like,
movement.
yeah, it was like, I want to call it a Puritan movement, but it was back to the ideals that Christianity taught. Also, for reference, I didn't mean my aforementioned statement about um, women having jobs being a bad thing. So,
That was just what 2025 believe or Project 2025 believes is that women shouldn't have jobs.
No, we should just leave all of our jobs to rich white men, except for the ones that we don't want to do.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a yearbook post. I saw like a bunch of yearbook pages of like a old
Mm-hmm.
high school, and all the women were like, "I just want to be a housewife," and that was early 1900s. We just had our 104th anniversary. 104 years ago is when women had the right to vote, and if you
Oh.
think about it, it was your great grandpa during that time. Well, it was my great
Mm-hmm.
grandpa because my dad was born in 55. My grandpa was born in uh like 30, and then
Mm-hmm.
his dad was born in like 1899 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I could be getting some of those off a little bit. I think my grandma was born in 22. My great,
Hmm.
but like it was like a couple years after that she was born when women couldn't vote, so her mom wasn't allowed to vote. And it's crazy to think that that's only like a couple
A few
generations.
generations ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's a little different with like I don't know, like your parents might not. You're like what 32?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm 35, I think. No, I will be 35. I'm not there yet. I'm still young.
I don't know why I thought you were 32. Or probably because
I don't
it
know.
was around when you had your 32nd birthday.
Yeah, that was depressing. Just bought a house though. That's more than most people could dream for in a lifetime anymore.
I bought a house, then sold a house, then regretted it because now I can't buy
Mm.
another house.
Yeah. Well, the tiny home industry is really coming around when you think about it.
What we're gonna have to do now is buy a plot of land and then go to Home Depot and buy a home kit and build
You
our
know,
home like Legos.
Tesla was working on, or Elon was working on a thing where it was like houses that'd be delivered and they basically flip open, and then boom, there you go. You just nail them to a foundation or really just a concrete slab, something heavy so they don't blow away.
Yeah. If you
Yeah.
really think about it, though, I mean, houses are just made of 2x4s and plywood.
Yeah.
You just
I know
gotta
what
get a
you're saying.
you just gotta get a kit with like instructions, like IKEA.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only bad part is if you mess up, it
Mm-hmm.
just falls down.
That's kind of why I like Hobbit holes, honestly. So they seem weird, but they're just fiberglass all over. But
Yeah.
fiberglass is so thick, like it literally relies on like how much dirt you put over top of it to keep the structure intact.
Oh, those are cool. I think I linked those to you before.
Yeah, but all you really need when you think about it is just an excavator. Really, you
Yeah.
could do it with a backhoe, and then you just keep piling dirt on top of it until it reaches a certain footage, I guess.
Hmm.
That's the best way to put that. But yeah, they just come in prefabricated shells. You crane them off. And what's that?
Perfect.
There are also 3D printing houses too, which is kind of cool.
I'm trying to think of the gods that were in Hobbit. So, the beings like Gandalf and Sauron, and
Mm-hmm.
they are um, godlike entities. They're not actually humans. They're like almost made of like energy, and they just assume
Right.
of the position of a human being. But that's what
Mm-hmm.
they are. So they're like the closest thing to gods in that. And there's like a
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy of them. And
Yeah.
I think the one that made the One Ring, um, I think he was a higher part of the god as well. It's been a while since I read that mythos and
Yeah.
stuff,
I get it.
but
The Valar.
yeah, the Valar.
Yeah. A group of powerful beings that shape and rule the world, kind of
Did you
like Greek
Google just
gods.
now?
No, I knew that offhand. Of course, I googled it. It was just easier. Yeah.
Yeah, I would not have remembered the name Valar.
Yeah, well, they're also referred to as the Eritar.
Yeah, I thought there was I thought there was Gandalf was like a lower being, which had another name to it. And then,
I don't know.
yeah,
We could just
uh,
search for his Gandalf of God.
was uh some Similarian, Scimitar, uh, one of the J.R.R. books that talk about it.
Yeah, it was probably the Silmarillion.
That's it.
It's just a bunch of short stories,
Yeah,
and I hate that Amazon show that's based off of it because I just don't feel like it does a very good job of explaining it.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to put J.R.R. books into like movie form unless you are making them really long. I mean, I
Well,
thought
I mean, the series is probably going to be really long,
yeah, I felt like
but it's all based on a bunch of short stories. So how much can you really go into certain things? And
right.
they're not really keeping to it too well.
I felt like the Lord of the Rings did a good job of getting 90% of the context with it.
Yeah. Well, Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, sure.
Yeah, I felt like The Hobbit was a little long winded with 3 movies, but
Yeah, especially considering it's only like a 400-page book.
yeah, there's only one book. It's like the size of
Yeah.
one of the movies,
Mm-hmm.
like the first movies, like the Fellowship of the Rings. It's about the same length, and they put that in the one movie,
Mm-hmm.
so they probably could have just put The Hobbit in the one movie, and it would have been, I think, way better.
Yeah.
Maybe two.
Yeah, I would think too, but
Otherwise, you're just
uh,
adding filler and like your own artistic
oh, they
push.
definitely added filler.
Yeah,
Yeah, they definitely added that.
I went and
But
got gas today, and I saw a guy with a
hmm
Valhalla bandana,
oh man,
and I'm like, does he worship Thor?
I
But then
thought it
I
would have
was
been
thinking maybe
Zeus.
Valhalla is a metal band.
We can look it up. Valhalla metal band. Yeah, they've been around since. Well, there's like three different bands called Valhalla. So one's been around since 1995, one since 1992, and one since 1979.
Yeah. I was already thinking about religion, so I was just thinking about the that mythos and
Mm-hmm.
Vikings. So I wonder where that falls into my timeline. The um the earliest religion that we have is prehistoric religion, which dated back to 3000 BCE, which is crazy
Mm-hmm.
because that's the time in which the Bible says didn't exist. Like because the Earth is only like I don't know.
The devil comes in many forms and shapes, Aaron. The devil comes in many forms and shapes.
I like that the Bible has a lot of plot holes, but because we have a devil, it like fills in all
Hmm
those gaps.
Well, clearly, the Bible was written by man, and men are fallible, Aaron. So therefore, the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bible is most likely written in Latin.
It was written in a bunch of different languages. So you got to keep in mind it wasn't written by one person. It was written by like we'll just say 20 people, but it was probably more than that. And then you have the Old Testament and the New Testament, and then you even have something called the Pseudo Apocrypha, which is and the Apocrypha itself. And the Catholic Church, um, they do include some apocryphal teachings, not a whole lot. But the pseudo apocrypha is like all batshit nuts things. But the Catholic Church basically decided which books could make it in and which books would not make it in to the Bible um, years upon years ago.
Yeah, the first introduction of Christianity came in 200 BCE. with
Hmm.
Roman paganism,
Right.
and
Well, and you'll
paganism with
notice even
Christianity.
with other religions, such as Mithraism, as an example, you'll see similarities constantly between the two. It's uncanny, really.
Yeah,
Of course, in Mithraism, they decided that the bull was a their symbol of oh, how do I want to put it? I don't remember. The bull is very important though to Mithraism, and most of that ends up coming from Zoroastrianism,
yeah.
which I barely even remember anything about Zoroastrianism. I know that it was a religion back in Egypt where they built ziggurats to it, and that's about as much as I know.
It was around the 6th century in Persia,
Yeah,
one of the first
sounds right.
monotheistic religions. A
Yeah.
lot of religions before, um, like that that era were monotheistic, not monotheistic,
Polytheistic.
polytheistic, because
Yeah.
we had religion explaining why things were happening. I mean, just like with Zeus and
Mm-hmm.
everything, it was those were the reasons why we had lightning and thunder and weather changes
Mm-hmm.
and bad crops. That's why religion was around. We didn't have
Mm-hmm.
science back then to explain everything. Like you already know that. But that's that's why that's why we have religion is just because of science wasn't catching up. So we had to have reasons why things were happening.
I mean, and you think about it too, right? There's more to it than just that because some of these people, I mean, they're not trying to get explanations for what's happening to them. They just want to know that they're part of some sort of community. I mean, and that's how I feel like a lot of churches all over the U.S. are anymore. Uh, you know, any member of a church after somebody does something stupid would just be like, in most instances, oh, I never saw that coming. Oh, well, I did know that, this or that.
Yeah,
They kind of make up excuses for that person's actions to some degree. Um, and really, that just comes down to a sense of community. The people that you like or that you feel you relate to in some
yeah.
sort of way, we'll just say.
It's
Um,
funny that you mentioned community because
mhm,
so back in Roman Christian times, like with Plato and
mhm,
Aristotle and Socrates, like the ancient Greek and Roman religions, in
mhm,
in Greece, polytheistic religions were around with gods
mhm,
like Zeus and Athena. Um, but we also had philosophical systems like Stoicism and
mhm.
Epic, Epicurean.
Epicureanism. Yeah.
So when you look at those were schools of philosophy and thought. So they were like
Mhm.
leaders of Stoicism, and uh, Epicurean was part of who invented Epicureanism. And Epicureanism is basically like um, it's a teaching where the highest the idea is like pleasure is the highest good, and you can only attain the highest good through moderation and wisdom. So you had like
Mhm.
a bunch of followers of Epicurean, and they were trying to get more people to follow this train of thought. So it was like that community. But then you had people that were like put of Stoicism, which believed that you shouldn't have, you shouldn't be tempted with like, you should
It wasn't
control your
about
thought.
material goods. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
you
was
should
about.
have like, they basically taught you like self control and overcoming emotions,
Mhm.
and that you
Yeah,
shouldn't have anger, envy, jealousy, things like that. So
and to some degree, like a religion ends up taking on those dead schools of philosophy. Um, Maybe not in the instance of Diogenes, like who was all about the school of cynicism and lived in a barrel and preached how being a hermit will really do you some good
Right.
as a homeless guy in a barrel.
It's yeah.
But
They're basically taking religion and putting more meaning to it. So you have like an ethical or moral ground to live by, rather than
right,
just following the words of Zeus. Because if you just follow the words of Zeus, you're just going to be raping everyone. 'Cause that's
yeah,
how
and if
he rolled.
yeah, well, I mean, every church is a little bit different too. So, like, your more cynical churches, such as like, we'll just say, Apostolic Mennonite and Amish communities, right?
Mhm.
They might preach that the old ways are the ways that we do things. These are the ways that we've survived, and we've only survived because of God's blessing, because of how much that we have given up, and because we've always trusted in the tried and true ways that our fathers and grandfathers have bestowed upon us. But then you have other communities, such as maybe the Jewish community, who they do place high historical value within what their ancestors did and what their ancestors went through, but
Mm,
they've taken an entirely different meaning out of
exactly. There's no wrong way to eat a Reese's.
it.
There's no wrong way to follow a specific religion. There's no wrong way to be someone that's following the
I
Judaism.
don't know. I'm
And
still stuck on this. There's no wrong way to eat a Reese's thing, and I can think of the time that like there was a homeless guy who was licking the peanut butter out of a Reese's egg, but maybe that doesn't count because that's technically not a Reese's. But it was like he was making out with somebody's butthole while trying to scoop out the peanut butter because he didn't like chocolate.
huh. Well, there's no wrong way to eat a Reese.
Got plenty of judgment reserved for that statement.
Yeah. I feel like we see a lot of that in modern religion too, though, is like that sense
We
of
see.
community. Because like we have so many different people that follow Christianity and
Hmm.
Catholicism, and even when you're just looking at the news and seeing how they are depicting what the Bible is saying and how they're acting, and then you look at your, I don't know, your aunt or something that is also a Christian
Hmm.
or a Catholic, and you're like, you guys are way different in how you approach your own religion. And I think what it
Well,
comes down to is religion is very personal, and you
well,
shouldn't
and you're
be.
you're not wrong, because if
Yep.
you go to any church, right, any church,
Yep.
you'll often hear the statement it's about a relationship with God, which I think is an absolutely terrible statement, right? And it's not necessarily because having a relationship with a deity is a bad thing,
Hmm.
but a lot of the people who you'll hear that from are people who have been, well respected members of their church for eons, and they're telling a newcomer that they need to have a better relationship with God, not knowing if they have any sort of mental illness background where they will justify their actions by
Right.
God told them to do it. It's a very, it can be a very dangerous sort of broad sweeping statement to make,
Right.
I guess is the way to put it.
I remember another yearbook quote where a guy said, someone stole my bike, so I asked God for a new bike, but I knew that's not how God worked. So I stole a bike and asked for God's forgiveness.
God forgiveness. Yeah. Yeah, I've read similar things. And a lot of times it is easier to ask forgiveness than for permission.
Yeah.
But
I think what a lot of people realize or don't realize is an important thing for Christianity is God gave us free will.
you mean the ability to go against what everybody else is saying and go against.
Yeah, God can't. I mean, a good example was with Bruce Almighty, where you couldn't mess with people's
Hmm.
free will.
Hmm.
That was a good depiction
But
of what that means.
Simultaneously, though, God gives you free will, but he also is all knowing. I always took issue with that contradiction right there because you cannot be all knowing and yet give people free will and then expect that they're going to surprise you when it comes to them being redeemed, if you
It
understand
is
what
a
I'm saying.
good contradiction. It's
Because if you already know what the outcome of everything and you gave people free will, then how much free will is it? Because at a certain point, wouldn't a designer of all have already condemned them?
that is an argument that does come up with Christianity, is because that God does know everything, all knowing, all powerful, but he does give people free will. But it's not a real free will because he already knows what's going to happen.
Then again, you're talking to somebody who's been going through an existential crisis since he's been 12 years old, but
Yeah.
but it's either you have free will or you don't. You have the
Yeah.
ability to make change or you don't. And I guess
Um,
that's one of my biggest issues with religion in general is that it's very limiting in the philosophical sense.
right. When usually when we talk about in like the philosophical like debates or teachings, when we talk about religion and Christianity or specific religions, we they talk about like the Bible. The Bible does come up obviously because that's where everyone's getting their information from for their religion. And you can either take it in a couple of ways. You can take it at face value, so reading everything, following everything, uh, know that there's contradictions, and do your best. You could also look at it as like a storybook and finding those moral actions and those actions as a way to teach yourself how to be a good person. Usually,
Well,
when we talk
oh, go
about,
on.
yeah, usually like philosophers that are debating religion do not follow the Bible as something that is going to teach them how to be a good person. They teach it as like a book to get guidance from,
Hmm.
because you can't read it face value because there's so many contradictions in it.
Well, and that makes sense. But the amount of people who their faith is their utmost priority
Hmm.
that haven't read the entirety of the Bible, they've just been taught the
Right.
Bible, is astounding. And even then, there are things that are missed.
I mean, that usually comes from like your pastor or your preacher
Yeah.
of how they're teaching you. So they're teaching you their point of view or their stance on how they are depicting how they're reading
Or
the
even just one moral lesson, but then you go out, I don't know, you take them outside of the church and do something with them, right?
Bible.
And like, how do I want to put this delicately? So you'll you're not always going to have this, but let's take my one of my first dates as this, right?
Hmm.
I take her on like this nice picnic, and then I'm driving her home, and then all of a sudden she's starting to get all promiscuous with me, even though the Bible says quite clearly, "Don't do all of these things." We did all those things, and that is a very clear teaching from everything from the Old Testament to the New Testament. And that can be, summed up to, hey, nobody's perfect, and I understand that.
Right.
But it can also be summed up to she had never read the Bible in a day in her life, right? Came from a super Christian family, right?
Yeah.
Super Christian. Never read the Bible a day in her life, at least not like for her own purposes, right?
Hmm.
Right wing as hell, could not get a word in edgewise about how the right is going to lower taxes and do this and that. And yet, none of those things really add up to what the Christian religion is about.
Right. Christianity didn't really have when it was first developed. They did have taxes because Romans did have this tax idea, but things have changed from when Christianity first was written. In it would have been Hebrew actually, because it came from Judaism and they all wrote in Hebrew. So
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I mean, the Jewish people, they follow the Old Testament.
right,
Christians follow mostly the New Testament.
and
And Hebrews and Muslims, well, I
right,
shouldn't say Hebrew.
and then
Well,
it
no,
was
yeah, Hebrews.
translated to Latin more than likely because it came from Romans and everything was Latin and Roman. So
Hmm.
translating from Hebrew to Latin, I'm sure it's fine. It's not like we have
You know,
any.
the fact that a Germanic language ended up winning out as like the number one language in the world is kind of surprising when you think about it.
Languages
With how
change.
much
So
with how much influence is behind the Latin language, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
The fact that something like English, which came from Germanic roots, could win out is just weird, silly.
I
But I'm sorry. Go on.
I think one of the issues I have with the Bible is how it's translated. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, you can always nitpick things in the Bible, um, but also if you're reading the Bible at face value, you have to read it in Hebrew first, and you would have had to
Hmm.
read it in the first iteration of Hebrew, and you would have had to grew up in Hebrew at that time to know the
Yeah, you would have had
dialect
to have
and slang.
studied it and have
It's like
access to the official documents.
so. For example, um, Donata. What's that means like no problem or no big deal in Spanish, right?
Yeah, it's from Spanish. Yeah,
So if
that means of nothing is
yeah,
what it literally translates to.
right,
Yeah.
of nothing. A lot of people use it as like slang for no problem. So
Yeah.
if you see de nada written out, you're gonna think, oh, of nothing. Or if
Yeah.
you are familiar with the slang, you're gonna translate it to no problem. But if you
Yeah.
translate it no problem back into Spanish, you're gonna put no problemo.
Yeah.
And that has it's like playing telephone with translating.
Yeah. I can see that.
So you're not going to actually get like a good meaning or translation unless you read everything at face value from when it was written. And it
Yeah.
does kind of hurt religion in that aspect because no one's going to read original text in Hebrew or Latin or anything like that.
Well, that's
They
why
don't
I
understand it.
subscribe to a simpler religion of Scientology, where it was written by a science fiction writer who's very fluent in English.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, that would be the best way to have a religion is modern. Our modern religion would be Scientology. At least we all understand it, and we could. I mean, it was written like what 40 years ago or something like that. So, I mean, all the slang is relatively new. So,
Yeah, well, I'm not. We're not. Well, I'm not going to become a Scientologist. But I mean, this is why you have different facets of the Christian religion, different um, sects,
yeah,
so to speak. So this is why the Amish and the Catholics they probably don't see eye to eye on a lot of things.
and this is why a
This
lot
is,
of Christians don't like the conservative Christians of the MAGA corporation.
but a lot of them do. But it really just has to do with, I think, more than the teachings of the Bible. I think it has more to do with the community in
Yeah,
which that is being taught, which is in itself a different translation altogether in some instances.
yeah. I think when it gets to that point of you you have like a giant circle, and that giant circle is encompassing all Christians, so you're all part of that mentality. But then you have like smaller circles that you don't quite
Mhm.
follow everything of everyone, so you have like a little circles within that giant circle, but at least you all
Right.
have something in common, and that's Christianity. So at least you can,
or community.
yeah. So at least you all are part of that Christianity community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well the Amish Christians will get along with the modern MAGA conservative Christians, though.
I've never really thought about that comparison, but I have to imagine as soon as Mega is told to work hard for what they have, that probably ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the idea behind most small businesses is swindle the people into working for you,
Right.
as opposed to being a good employer. Just everybody's looking for a job. I'll offer it out there for $15 an hour. Average is 20. But why can't I get anybody to work for me who's worth a lick of salt? I'm gonna run outside and smoke real quick. This entire conversation just reminds me of a previous boss.
This is a good stopping point anyway. So tune in next time for History of Religion Part 2. I'm Aaron and also Ryan. Goodbye.